Winning every game of defense, is it possible? No, but you can increase your chances like quite a bit. It's actually not super difficult to win on defense. It can feel like it is, but there's quite a few things that I've picked up that have made it a lot easier. So starting with one, okay, awareness is super important. So I stress this, and I have, and especially my strategy guide, but also in other videos. And I mean, if you're just watching me, you'll see me looking up. Attack, it's important, okay? Arguably, right, it's the most important skill for attack as well. But for defense, it's way more important because the margin for error is a lot smaller. You can't make as many positional mistakes as you can with attack or with defense as you can with attack. When you're playing attack, you can run in like an idiot. And because typically the maps are designed in a way that allows, attack to kind of just smack through, right? Get through the objectives really easily. It's not that hard, right? You can kind of just run around, and even if you're like newer, if your team is like that much better than the defending team, your attacking team, you're probably not going to die. But if you're on defense, right? Even like on a good defense, sometimes you do have those like stalwart ones where your first objective holding, nobody's dying on your team, right? And they're barely getting through. Those aren't really the games I'm talking about. Those are like a catch-all. Like, you're not going to die at all. There's no chance of it. But the ones where it's a little bit close, where you actually have to put an effort, is the ones I'm referring to. So assuming that you're in a game where the score is about equal or like tilting to your side, you need to watch where you're at. Because a lot of the time, if you're running around like a fucking idiot, you're going to get smashed. You need to be focusing a lot more on where you are relative to your team when you're in these sorts of games. Like, for example, right? I'm obviously playing in the Gallon Core right now. That's the game that's in the background. This game, I was near my teammates like basically the entire time, right? I'm paying attention. Okay, I'm with my friend, right? I'm noticing where he's at relative to where I'm at. I'm making sure that anybody I'm running around and I'm dealing with also is dying as quickly as possible, okay? This goes along with weapon choice. Weapon choice, once again, it's important, right? On attack, you can kind of get away with anything, right? You can kind of pick out whatever weapon you want and have fun and probably win pretty easily. But on defense, especially when you're on a defense that's not doing super well, you need to pick weapons that are longer. You need to pick weapons that are longer in meta, right? Like the heavy mace, the battle axe, or not the battle axe, more the war axe, right? The war axe, the messer, the great sword, the executioner's axe, right? These longer, high damaging weapons are like required. You cannot do the same things on attack that you can do on defense with something like the Morningstar. Morningstar is a great weapon, right? But on defense, it's awkward as hell to use, right? You're not going to be carrying a match with the Morningstar on defense. It's just not made for that. It's made for you to go up in close range to your opponents, preferably one at a time, right? And just own them, right? But like, groups of people, like the group that I'm fighting in the background, right? Impossible. It would literally be impossible. I would just have gotten mashed. I maybe could have gotten a heavy off or two, but I would have likely gotten gambled, right? So that's where the range is going to come into, use, obviously, right? You can force people to whiff. You can hit people in a large group. No hit stop, right? Because it's something like the messer. So, something like the messer right here too, like those overheads that you have, especially in a group where, as you know, the messer's overheads are super difficult to read, but where you're in a group, it's even more, right? So something like this weapon, you're right, the great sword and it are ridiculous for dealing with groups of people. They obviously cannot two-shot nice with their heavy slash, but that doesn't necessarily matter when you have an overhead that you can just smack people with over and over, and they'll make the same mistake reading it as a slash. So something too on like an objective, but also goes for something like Lionspire and Rudhelm and various other maps, right? Watch for catapults and ballistas, okay? Awareness is applying to your enemies, but it's also applying to the giant fucking missile launching rock launcher, okay? The fucking ballista and the catapult, you can't necessarily always avoid them, right? You're not a paragon, right? Maybe you are. Maybe you have magic powers, but assumably you don't. So you're not able to focus on that thing 24/7. But you want to have a general idea where it's firing. If you notice where it's firing and you see it, move a little bit, right? You're paying attention and you see it bounce around, right? They're aiming at one objective, they're aiming at the other objective. Focus that, right? Pay attention to where it's firing. Try to avoid it, because the worst thing that you can do is huddle on an objective while the cat is firing at it. Because it's like, yeah, I know it's annoying, right? It's a catapult, right? You see I get ganks in the background, but you're gonna die to it. You're gonna die. You're gonna get fucked. But you can avoid it. Like if you can avoid it, use that opportunity, right? If you notice it's firing at one spot, don't just stay in the same area. Don't run to the area it's firing even, right? Try to avoid it, because if you die, right? If you go down and now they're all on the objective, right? They're all going crazy on the objective. You're probably not going to be able to retake it. So, I mean, especially if you're with one of your friends, you know, do a call out. Let your friends know. Let the people who you're playing with know on comms where it's firing. Ideally, even seek it out and destroy it, right? If it's a map like Lionspire, sometimes you can kind of get around and go destroy it, because that's your number one objective on defense. Obviously, it's just defending. But like if you're on an objective like the door, right, like Lionspire, or even this objective, really, because killing people, I mean, it's the same thing as that door, right? Like you need to have your bases covered when it comes to siege weapons, or as you saw there, right, what's the siege weapon going to do? He's going to absolutely eviscerate everybody in a group, like repeatedly. The siege weapon, though, in this situation was not amazing, right? The enemy teams was not that good. But like if they're remotely good, right, I would have been nuked quite a bit more times than I was. So you can see I'm retreating right now. So engineering when you must. This is something that it's okay. So even if you're like a really good player, right? Even if you are absolutely cracked, if you notice a game, it's up to you if you want to win it. Sometimes you want that game to extend a little bit longer, right? We all love our Gallon Courts, our Lionspires, all that kind of shit, right? Maybe you want to go towards the end, but if you're trying to win because it's like a standalone or it's a heated match, a clan match, whatever, engineer. I know it's boring, right? You don't necessarily want to be the engineer all the time because you get the one weapon and you're obviously a footman class, right? So you don't have all the health that you're accustomed to. But that doesn't necessarily matter, right? When you want to win the game, you need to pick engineer sometimes. I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are. Play engineer. If nobody's playing engineer and you see it's a winnable game, that you can absolutely take and, you know, take the dub on, play engineer. Just play it, because if you don't, like, there's a very high chance that you're going to get fucked. And if you get fucked, it's going to be really depressing, because you're going to be sitting in the defeat screen like, oh man, I could have won that. I could have done X and Y, but you know, I didn't, because I'm a big stupid retard, okay? Don't be that guy. Play engineer, play it, just switch to it. I'll switch to it occasionally, right? If I really feel like I can do something and it's a game I want to win, I will switch to engineer. You can always pick up a weapon on the ground, right? There's not an excuse. You really can play it. Your health is going to be impeded, obviously, but you can pick up stuff you find on the ground. So something to run with a good player. If you are running around, you know, treat all your teammates the same, in the sense, like, you know, they're still bodies that can help you. But like, if you have like a top scoring level 1K on your team, support him. Support him, especially if he's playing in a group. Play in the group that he's playing in, right? You want to help him. You want to help whoever your best player is, because he's gonna be basically your second best shot. If you're the top, right? He's the second. He's your second best shot at winning the game, right? You want him in your corner. You want to be playing around him. That's what I have in this background video. I'm playing with one of my friends. He doesn't play super often, but he's really good at the game. I recognize that. And so I make sure that I play around him just in the back of my head, because we're super effective as a group. Just me and him alone could hold off a couple of the objectives against at least 5 people, right? And I'm aware of that, right? So I'm like, you know, he's healing right now. I'm keeping him safe, right? I'm making sure that, you know, none of these bots, you know, are able to kill him. We got to make sure that we cover him while he's healing. You know, always cover your teammates. If they're healing in front of you and you can cover them, you see they're about to get attacked, just help them out. You know, even if you're in that like kill streak, just turn around, help out, do what you need to do. So you can see that I'm playing with the Executioner's Axe, right? This weapon is like a really good defensive weapon. Same goes for, honestly, the heavy mace, but like obviously, you know, that is hit stop, right? So it doesn't apply to every person. The Executioner's Axe, as well as the Battle Axe, does, though. I get absolutely smacked, by the way, just like quad hit, insta killed. The Executioner's Axe and the Battle Axe absolutely apply to everybody, though. Those are two really great defensive weapons if you're new at the game. Play with like the Battle Axe, play with the Executioner's Axe, because long two-shotting heavy slashes, right? No brain to use, right? There's no finesse, there's no hit stop, there's nothing you have to play around. They're just long and they do a lot of damage. So definitely use them. You got to make use of them. They have their time and their place, right? And like, you know, if you want to win the game, they are like, I wouldn't say they're paramount, right? It's not required, but like, you know, a knight using those two weapons even if you're like a bot, like you're probably going to offer a lot more defensive power to your team than if you were playing something like the Warhammer, as much as I love that weapon. So this is something that doesn't necessarily apply to this game, but like I think it's really important that everybody kind of has this in their head. Recognize when a game is being lost, okay? Those games that you are losing, do not play them as if you're winning. That goes without being said, obviously. But like, if you're running around and you're noticing that your team is getting absolutely eviscerated, let's say you're playing on Dark Forest, right? Everybody knows that game can be, that map can be really one-sided, right? It can be extremely hectic to play on because you're trying to have fun, you're trying to do what you can, but like your team is just getting smacked, okay? On maps like those, you need to pick the fights when you can. You obviously need to play pretty passive, but like at the same time, right? Just recognize that you're probably not going to win. You can stack that last objective, absolutely, but play smart. Don't play if you're going to win a game, right? You're going to play that differently than you're going to play a losing game. Just, I mean, that goes without being said, but like when it comes to these super blowouts that happen on certain maps, play passive. You know, don't necessarily pad your score. I mean, if you can pad your score, go for it, but like, you know, pay attention to what objectives that you can win, right? Something like Dark Forest, that second objective, let's say you get blown out the first, the second objective, you're on it. You can defend that wall. That wall is defensible. You're playing the final objective. That objective is defensible as Duke, right? Even if you were getting completely owned, Shiv maps generally have, like, even the worst ones, have like 1 or 2 objectives that you can actually defend on. And you need to play those like you can actually defend them. Don't just like, you know, if you've been playing passive the whole game because your team is like utter dog shit, I get it, okay? It's complete ass, I understand. But play those last objectives. Play the objectives that you think you can actually win seriously. You know, stack them with Engineer. Do what you can. You know, let's say that it's like 150 kills to 500 on something like that. I mean, if that's something like that, you're good as dead. But like, you know, you get the idea. If you're playing Dark Forest and it's been a blowout up until that point, you know, you're playing with a friend, you might be Duke, whatever. Try to win that game. Get your friend to play on the flag, you know, place flags with the Guardian, you know, banners, right? You want to heal, maybe get somebody to play Engineer, right? For you know, the walls, because you can win those blowout games. It's not all lost, okay? Even if it's been like the most miserable fucking experience ever, you can still win these maps. These maps are totally the same goes for like not Dark Forest, Rudhelm. Well, Dark Forest as well, obviously, but Rudhelm, right? Final objective as the Duke. You can absolutely win on that map by sheer, you know, if you're really good, right, and you're with somebody else who's really good, you will win on those maps. You will win those blowout games on those maps just because that last objective is like super defensible. If anything else, right, if all the objectives suck, it's like that one you can win. You just need like 1 or 2 people placing banners and maybe somebody placing walls. You get those 2 things, right? 4 or 5 people can really just win the game. Even if you have like, you know, 25 idiots just running around, you know, 27 idiots, that's okay. You can still win with those odds. You just have to pay attention to the objectives that you're going to be able to win on, right? Don't get mad, don't get all ragey, right? I mean, if you got to leave the game, right, because you know it's just not going to happen, you can do that. But if you have some hope, right, you're thinking like, oh, you know, you're owning the game, you're doing super well in the game, but your whole team's doing shit. It's like, oh, well, keep in mind that last objective is probably a ticket to victory because your team might suck, their team might suck. You're aware of both, but like, you know, if the last objective is super defensible and you think you could win, right, don't let all hope go lost, right? Don't start playing like an idiot or get tilted, because if you can win, you know, you got to make sure that you do for your team, obviously. Getting kills is something that, like, I mean, you're going to be, if you're good at the game, you're going to be stacking them, but like your aggression on defense is, it's a back and forth, right? When you're playing and you're running with your group, you're trying to kill as quickly as possible. You're trying to stay with that group, right? So you don't get wiped, because if you get wiped or a couple of your people get pushed back, you got to wait for another spawn wave, right? But if you are, you know, you're noticing that groups of people are flooding onto an objective, think about the enemies like a dam, because that's really how it is most of the time. When you're running and, like, you know, let's say that you're a dam, right? What does a dam fucking do? It's holding water, okay? Think about like retarded bots on the enemy team as like water, you know? if you are a dam, right, you are going to be able to, you're gonna hold them back, right? You're gonna hold them back. If they're able to pass through, right, and you're not making sure that you're killing them, they're going to stack up, right? Think about how water piles up at a dam, right, when it's closed. When it's open, right, everybody's just coming through, or the water, I should say, is coming through, right? It's being processed slowly. You know, nothing bad's going on. But as soon as it gets closed, that water's going to pile up. And think about that like the enemies, right? When you're running around and you're killing groups of people, if you let them stack up, right? If you're not killing and if you're not being aggressive, you cannot play passive, right? You need to kill them, because once they're grouped up, that's how you lose. All it takes is one good push to lose your like defensive line. You could be holding an objective for like maybe like 10, you know, fucking minutes total, right? You're running through and you are like basically holding each objective pretty well. And, you know, let's say you're on like Fallmire, right? You're on the bridge on the second objective. You've been holding that shit for like 4 minutes, right? And all it takes though is like one Mason push that pushes past you, because you were playing a little bit too passive. They were able to stack up, right? You know, the dam wasn't in effect. It was all closed. So they just stacked the fuck up and they destroy you, okay? That's why being aggressive is important, and knowing when to run in, when to run out, you know, when to actually take the fight, right? Pay attention, because if you're not killing, if you're not being aggressive on defense, you know, you need to be passive, but like, once again, it's a game, right? You're trying to get enough kills where they're not stacking up, because if they trickle in one by one, you will easily win. But if they stack up, right, you know, noobs stronger together type shit, right? Apes stronger together. When all the noobs are with each other, right, that's when you're gonna get destroyed, because even if they suck, right, they're trickling in one by one, you own them one by one. But if they're in a group, you get like quad hit insta kill, which is what you saw for me on the ship earlier, right? I got hit by like 6 different people. Didn't matter that they were all bad. It doesn't matter how good they are. When there's 6 different people, you're gonna feel it. So we'll let the rest of this game play out, but this is a map that everybody hates for like a good reason, because every objective is like too defensible and almost annoying in a way, right? Because there's like what, 4 ballistas, 2 catapults. Like, I mean, with that much firepower, as well with like, you know, it's choke point oriented, right? You can only enter from like specific areas. You can enter from the like the up areas. I don't know what you want to call them, like the pushing the little carts, right? You can enter from the carts, so you know where people are coming from. It's not like Rudhelm where, you know, you're defending the big towers, but they can come from any direction, right? You're going through like choke points, and then there's like, you know, a bunch of fucking siege weapons. So a map like this almost doesn't apply, right? We obviously win on this map. You're going to be seeing it, but like, you know, this map sucks for a reason. This is definitely a, like, okay, this is not like a super skillful thing. Something like Galencourt or Lionspire has a bit more balance. This one is kind of like, okay, if defense does not have like a mental illness, right? If they're not totally dog shit, they're probably going to end up winning, right? They're probably, because if you lose here, you know, you go back to the bazaar, you can probably defend the bazaar, and if not the bazaar, the courthouse, because it's all choke points. So obviously you cannot live forever if you're playing on this map. If you're playing on the wall, right, obviously, right, you know, you're going to be able to defend pretty well, but then that's going to happen sometimes. You're going to get owned by the catapult, because it's just not something that you can avoid. If somebody's shooting at it with like a siege crossbow, maybe you're safe from it, but like, nobody's doing that. Nobody's like sitting. Very rarely will you have somebody sit on the wall and fire at like a stationary objective for like 8 minutes, because it's like really boring. So you don't really see that very often, but you know, that is a thing that can happen. But most of the time you're just going to get owned like that randomly. It's inevitable. It's inevitable on this map. It's inevitable on a couple different maps, right, where there's multiple katas. You're just going to die to them, and you need to accept that, because you also cannot really keep track of it because of the elevation, right? You have to be like actively walking towards the edge of the wall, looking down, trying to avoid it. And most of the time it's like barely going over like the edge of the it's barely going over the edge of the wall. Like you can barely see it, right? And it just comes over by a little bit and blows up, right? It's not like flying up and over you in the air. It's typically like just making it over and blowing up. So you can see we're running through. this map also, like, I mean, you just got to defend one objective, right? If you wall off one catapult, even if everything else was not defensive, defended at all, it would not matter, because just a single objective, it's got like what, like the ladder, and then the other side that you could walk through. There's like 2 entrances to it, so like nobody's ever getting through if you're actually paying attention. Those blowout games, I should mention too, I kind of like, those are the games that are obviously the most difficult for anybody to be in. Keeping a clear head, okay, those games are piss fucking annoying, okay? They're piss annoying, but like think of it as a challenge, which is like retarded, but like legit. Think about it like you are like, you're being given, okay, you're being given new game +7 on fucking Dark Souls, okay? You're being given a fucking challenge, because those sorts of games, they are, not all of them, but like a lot of them are winnable depending on the map. So like think about it like that. Think about it like you are being given like a very difficult Shiv game, like a fucking like realistic fucking Call of Duty difficulty modifier on the match. And that you can, if you play well enough, right? if you're goated, you can actually win it. Don't let yourself get all pissed off. Don't let yourself baby rage, because it's really easy to do that. But you can avoid your, if you have a clear head through the whole thing, you're more likely to win, you'll have more fun, and the game will be a lot more satisfying. So that's a victory, okay? That's going to do it for this one. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I have some stuff I'm being worked on, so this is a, pretty straightforward, pretty simple one. But yeah, thank you and goodbye.